Thank you everybody for coming for the special Sunday Feast program this evening. We are very honored and fortunate to have with us today His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Okay, if I say, let's welcome him a little bit more enthusiastically. Hari Bol! Generally, I don't have paper with me when I introduce the speakers, but Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's accomplishments are so many that my Kali Yuga memory completely fails myself today. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is an acclaimed author, speaker, life coach, and a monk. Building on his engineering degree from Government College of Engineering, Pune, he has studied extensively the philosophical and sociological ramifications of modern science. Complementing his scientific education is his keen spiritual sensitivity, honed by the systematic and sympathetic study of the Bhakti tradition for over 2 decades. He has been invited as a speaker at several local and international conferences on the interface of science and spirituality, including TEDx, World Peace Conference 2006, and World Peace Congress 2008, organized by UNESCO. He has given talks on a multitude of topics ranging from living in harmony, individual and social wellness, practical and spiritual perspectives on psychological issues at various universities, multinational corporations all over the world, from Australia to United States of America. His writings appear regularly in several Indian newspapers, including the reputed Speaking Tree column in the Times of India. Apart from 400 analytical articles and 5,000 question answers on spirituality, which are available at www.thespiritualscientist.com, and about 2,000 inspirational daily meditations on the Bhagavad Gita, available at gitadaily.com. He is also the author of 19 books on a wide variety of subjects ranging from science and spirituality, socio-cultural analysis of religion, and ancient texts of India, especially the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Bhagavad Gita. His writings are admired by some of the world's most prominent leaders, including Kailash Purya, former Mauritius president, and Dr. Vijay Bhatkar, developer of Param supercomputer. He is a member of the leading intellectual body, the Shastric Advisory Council for International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He is also an associate editor of Back to Godhead, ISKCON's global magazine. His writings in English have been translated into several foreign languages, including German, Chinese, Romanian, and several Indian languages, including Kannada, Telugu, Bengali, Hindi, and Marathi. Any Spanish devotees here? So there's an inspiration for you to read the Gita daily and translate it into Spanish. Didn't mean to put in the spot, Nelson Prabhu.
And there's a Korean version I can say that's
Thumbs up. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu has spoken at several multinational corporations, including Intel, What the Self Seeks Beyond the Selfie, Salesforce, again, What the Self Seeks Beyond the Selfie. At Google, the seminar was Missing the Self in the Selfie. We had the same conference, the same seminar here yesterday, the Missing Self in the Selfie. So, we'll add ISKCON Connecticut to this list now. Microsoft, personal competence through self-awareness and self-management, and also at Microsoft, social competence through social awareness. So can I have one more loud Hari Bol, please, so that we can show him how much we are happy to have him here. Hari Bol! And you can move a little forward. It's okay. Just move a little forward. I'm really hoping we'll have more devotees joining us, so then they can use the space in the back.
ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. I'm grateful to be here amongst all of you today. So on. So I'll speak. Today is Mother's Day. So I'll speak on this topic of Mother's Day. I'll speak in 3 parts. The conception of Mother's Day, then the commercialization that has happened of it, and lastly I'll talk about the spiritualization. So I was born and brought up in India, and I came to know about Mother's Day maybe about 10 years ago or so, after I had been a brahmachari for many years. And in India, the first response of many people towards the idea of Mother's Day was dismissive. What do you mean by Mother's Day? Why do you need something like a Mother's Day? So now, in traditional cultures, we want to respect our elders and take care of them. So we don't need, that's what my thinking was, that we don't need any special day for that purpose. But over the last few years, I've been traveling across the world, and I've been encountering different people in different cultures, different backgrounds, and I come up with my own understanding of humility. Humility means to acknowledge the complexity of reality. Humility means to acknowledge the complexity of reality. That means that we may think that, what is, things are like this, but there will be many more subtleties involved. So one of the defining differences for me when I interact with people from the West, of course I interact with many Western devotees in India, because ISKCON has many Western devotees, but when I interact with people from the West, I say in colleges, in companies, so one of the defining differences is the lack of stability of the family structure. And then there was one boy whom I met in college, after a college program, and he told me that after we got to know each other for some time, he told me that he grew up in a foster home. So then I asked him, after I got to know him, what happened? Did your parents die in an accident? So he said, no, actually both my parents are alive. I said, then what happened? Then why did you live in a foster home? He said, when I was 5, my parents separated. And when they separated, both of them, they told me that actually this marriage was the biggest mistake of my life. And they told this boy that you remind me of the biggest mistake of my life. So both the parents told the child, we don't want anything to do with you. And despite having 2 parents, the child became homeless. And then he was put in foster homes. So he was telling me, whenever he comes, he's now slowly coming to some bhakti programs. So he says that whenever he hears that there are verses, he says, Krishna is my mother, Krishna is my father. So he says, if Krishna is like my mother or father, I don't want to have Krishna. So people can get so psychologically scarred that when we have certain reference points by which we convey spiritual truths, those reference points themselves may not be applicable. So, if we look at the broad picture of nature, every living being, most living beings they have sexual reproduction. A few have asexual reproduction. And especially among mammals, among all species, when an offspring is born, the offspring depends a lot on the parents, especially the mother. Among all the species, it is mammals who breastfeed their offspring. And among all mammals, it is the human offspring that depends more than all other species on the parents. But nature has arranged in such a way that all other species, the parents have to take care for some time. Please accept my humble Chaitanya Swami Maharaj ki Jai. So, seek your blessings, Maharaj, so that I can speak something. So, among all species, human species is characterized by a greater dependence on the parents than all other species. Human children, if they are left by themselves, they won't be able to they can't survive. And they need care for a significant amount of time, much more than others. So by nature's arrangement, there is a strong bond created between the parents and the children in all species. And especially in the human species, it is very strong and is also required for the survival of the progeny. So, if we consider the way the world has changed over maybe since the Industrial Revolution, that's 200 years ago, 23 years ago, and especially in the last few years, that there has been a lot of what you could say the atomization of the family. That means instead of having an integrated unit, in the past we would have joint families, then we had nuclear families. Now there is nuclear fission. And there are electrons and protons orbiting around in the emptiness of the concrete jungles. So in such a situation, where there are healthy family bonds, they help not just in the physical sustenance, but also in the overall growth. Without these kind of without healthy relationships, people cannot grow properly in their lives. And among all the relationships which help us to grow, the mother's relationship is the most important. So, the mother who bears us in the womb and then she gives her a breast milk, it's Srila Prabhupada would say that it's the nearest that we come to selfless love in this world. That where we can experience caring for another human being at a very intimate and at a highly selfless level. So Prabhupada in the book Second Chance, there he talks about how Ajami was attached to his son, and there he says that the affection of the parents for their children is natural and necessary, but it is not spiritual. It is natural. Natural means it is produced by nature. Every time Prabhupada gives the example in his talks over there that if there is a small kitten and if somebody comes to touch the kitten, the cat will show her claws. She will show her nails and it will protect the thing. So it's natural and it's necessary. But it is not spiritual. Now, it is not spiritual because there may not be any conception of the soul or God in it directly. So if we consider, say, most of us here are Indians and we are all living in a Western world, Western culture. So I talk from both perspectives and then we'll talk from the spiritual perspective. So in Indian culture, to some extent, the material means the the piety, material piety, is equated with spirituality. That means if somebody is living a good life, doing dharma, artha, kama, that itself is considered to be good enough. So many of the lectures that Srila Prabhupada gave in Hindi in India, he focused on the theme of how we need to go from aparadharma to paradharma, from material religion to spirituality. And that means we need to center our life on Krishna. So there is a lot of focus on that we have to do our material duties, and if you are doing those duties, then that itself is religious. So there is from the Upanishads one verse which people often call Matrudeva Bhava, Pitrudeva Bhava. And the mother is God, the father is God. Now, if you look at the overall context which you just said, the sentiment underlying it is valuable. That for a child who is born into this world, the mother and the father are the primary sustainers of life. So just as God sustains our life, the mother and the father sustain their life. And in that sense, just as we are indebted to God, we are indebted to the parents. Now, this does not literally mean that the mother and the father are God. If it literally meant the mother and father are God, let's say many parents are very ambitious about the children. The ones, mother and the father, they had a quarrel. So, and they went to the court because of the quarrel. So then the mother wanted that my son should become a doctor. And the father wanted my son should become an engineer. And both of them quarreling, both came to the court. And then they came to the court, the judge said, why do you have to come to the court? Just ask the son. He says, no, we can't ask the son. Why not? He is not yet born. So, sometimes it may happen that the parents will project their expectations a lot on the children. And then, say, if there's a situation where if the mother is God and the father is God. So the mother God is saying, become a doctor. The father God is saying, become an engineer. So which God should you follow at that time? So this statement has a sentiment which is to be appreciated. The mother and the father are the primary representatives of God for us. And we are meant to serve them. Even Krishna in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, around chapters 40, 41, 44th chapter, Hare Krishna, where he kills Kamsa and thereafter he unites with his parents. So he also says over there that actually I as a child am meant to serve you. But unfortunately because of circumstances I couldn't serve you. So now that I am back with you, now I will serve you as well as I can. So this mood is very valuable. So in the Indian tradition, what has happened is that the piety is equated with spirituality. So aparadharma is considered the supreme dharma. So the mother and father, if we absolutize them as God, then there is a problem. Because they are not God. However, they are the first representatives of God for a child who comes to this world. And in that sense, they are meant to be venerated. If we consider the Western world, because of various factors, the family bonds, they are not very strong, at least in the current or the last generation, you could say. Before that, they were strong. And because of this disintegration, there is always a generation gap. And because of the generation gap, which is always there in every civilization, but there is a large amount of fragmentation. So if you consider the Western world, the kids just want to be free as soon as possible and break free from their parents and have their own life. And that way, when they want to live in such a culture, to acknowledge that my parents have done a lot for me, especially my mother has done a lot for me, this acknowledgement is itself, to some extent, you could say, sattvic. There are three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So we live largely in a passionate world. In the passionate world, we often become very self-centered. Now, every relationship that we have, it forces us to come out of ourselves. The self can become like a black hole in which people's consciousness gets sucked. I want this, I want that, I want that. Almost everybody in today's world is a eye specialist. Not this eye specialist, but this eye specialist. So people just, what I want and what I want, that's all that matters. So now in such a situation, that's why any relationship that we form, it forces us to come out of ourselves and makes us think of the other person. And it is one reason, of course, is that because we have such a I-centered culture, that's why people do not want to form any committed relationships. They don't want to form any committed relationships wherein they think that so aversion to commitment is not actually detachment. Aversion to detachment means one has understood, okay, these things don't really give any higher happiness. So let me look at something higher. So detachment is in the mode of goodness. But aversion to commitment is in the mode of ignorance. That means one thinks there are so many enjoyable options. If I choose one, the other doors will close for me. So let me keep all doors open. So that is indecision, not because of any realization or any renunciation. It is indecision because of excessive attachment. So when people don't form committed relationships, at that time, people become more and more self-centered. And every relationship that we form, it forces us to come out of ourselves. So it is said that parents make children and children make parents. That means that parents, they will beget children, but when parents have children, having children makes the parents mature. They have to become more responsible, they have to become more concerned about others. So for the soul to grow from self-centeredness towards thinking of something beyond that, every relationship is valuable in that. So if you consider from the adult's perspective, relationships are what help us to grow in our self-understanding, grow beyond self-centeredness. And when there is no committed relationship, then people just sink into themselves. So when people are sinking more and more into themselves, so as I said, the self can become a black hole, and all of people's conceptions are centered only around them. So at that time, if there are some expressions, some rituals, some practices, some celebrations that inspire people to come out of themselves, then that is positive. So when in a culture of Rajoguna where I just want whatever I want, and Tamoguna I'm not concerned about anything else. So if somebody is concerned about any other relationship and is willing to acknowledge that, that is to some extent in the mode of goodness. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the Chaitanya Charan talks about how a devotee's heart is in devotional festivals. Festivals glorifying Lord Hari. So Janmashtami, Gaur Purnima. These are the festivals that a devotee delights in celebrating. But then Bhaktivinoda Thakur lived at a time in Bengal when the worship of the goddess Kali Puja was also very prominent. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that there are other kinds of festivals that a devotee, if it is required for deference to social custom, a devotee may participate in that. But when the devotee participates in that, the devotee spiritualizes the consciousness. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes in his commentary to the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that Prithu Maharaj, when he was a king, he would perform yajnas. And when he would perform yajna, there were many aspects of the yajna which were meant for the devatas. So Prithu Maharaj externally performed those practices because people in general may not be at the level of pure devotional service. So let them at least do some worship of some devatas. But internally, while the yajna of the devatas was going on, internally he was contemplating that these are actually the representatives of Krishna. Narayan Angaja, that All devatas are the body of Narayana. And therefore, actually, let me offer my heart to Lord Narayana. So when this attitude is there, then a devotee can participate in any festival, internally seeing the spiritual aspect of it. So in today's world, where there is so much disintegration of the family, any celebrations that affirm the value of the family and help people integrate, when we may take each other for granted and may not express affection. At that time, if we express affection, if there are some special days on which we express affection, that is positive. However, the nature of the material world is that everything, whatever positive is there, then some negativity always becomes associated with it. So, for example, Christmas is a celebration, and for most people, Christmas, especially for most children and most people in public, imagine Christmas is more about Santa Claus than about Jesus Christ. So Christmas is about, oh, Santa is going to come and give me some gifts. It is that Jesus sacrificed or Jesus appeared or anything connected with Jesus that goes into the background. Maybe some plays are made in some churches about the nativity scene. But the nature of the material world is whatever is there gets dragged down to material consciousness. So there is a lot of commercialization, and it is not just in Christianity. In India, Diwali is there. It's a big festival. But in Diwali, I was born in a pious Hindu family. But for us, Diwali meant primarily two things. Sweets. The one is firecrackers and sweets. A lot of noise and a lot of food. The religious significance was, or the spiritual aspect of it was hardly ever talked about. And Diwali is about buying a lot of things, people have big businesses, people sell a lot of things. So if the spiritual aspect is lost, then that which is meant even for a good purpose at a material level, or some elevation of consciousness could be there, that also gets dragged down. I am from Maharashtra in India, where Ganesh Puja is very popular, worship of Lord Ganesh. So at one time, I was invited to a Ganesh Utsav, the festival of Lord Ganesh, and there they had asked me to speak on Dharma. So I spoke based on the Bhagavad Gita. But before that, there's big deities of Ganesh. So what had happened? I went there to offer my respects, and then I saw that in that same pandal, on loud speakers, there are Bollywood songs going on. So then I asked people, I asked the organizers, this is Ganesh Utsav, can't you have some bhajans related with Lord Ganesh? They said, actually, Ganesh is Bhakta Vatsala. He loves his devotees. And therefore, he loves whatever his devotees love. So the people who come, they like Bollywood songs, and these are not Bollywood religious songs. It's Bollywood romantic songs. So this is a distortion of what actually the religious festival is meant to be. So for them, in the Ganesh Utsav that happens in Maharashtra, it is huge, and quite often it is just a competition of the ego. So there are different people, different wealthy people say, I got this big Ganesh, and some say, I got this big Ganesh, I got this big Ganesh, and they get huge Ganesh deities, and so many people came to take darshan of our Ganesh. So many people came to our Ganesh Utsav. So Krishna says in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that Atma Sambhavita Stabdha Dhanamana Vidanvitaha Yajante Nama Yajnste Dambhena Vidhi Purvakam. 16.16 and 17 he says, there are some people, they do sacrifice, Yajante, Nama Yajnste. They don't do Yajna of Nam, they don't chant the holy names. They do Yajna for Nam. They do sacrifice so that they can get name and fame. So sometimes what happens, the material motive comes up in various celebrations. The same happens with respect to Mother's Day also. And that it becomes a commercialized festival where, say, Hallmarks or others, they make cards and everybody buys cards and give those cards. And that way, the commercialization can also happen. But as devotees, If we are in a culture where this is celebrated, then we can spiritualize it. Now, how do we, with this background, how do we spiritualize a festival like this? Actually, spiritualization happens when we see that there is a channel of love and there is a source of love. So in the Bhagavatam, it is said that whatever, like a devotee who surrenders to the Lord, then for them there are no debts to anyone. Now, what does this mean actually? The well-known verse in the Bhagavad, in the Vedic traditions, it also says, "Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva, tvameva bandhushya sakha tvameva, tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva, tvameva sarvam mama deva deva." It's the prayer of the Absolute, and it is saying that you are my mother, you are my father, you are my brother, you are my friend, you are my wealth, you are my knowledge. You, O Lord of Lords, you are my everything. So what does this verse mean? It means that actually whatever love we get from anyone, we get it ultimately from the Lord. So when the mother offers her love to the child, the mother definitely she is offering her own love, but it is not just her own love. The mother offers her breast milk to the child. At the same time, that is a very intimate act of love. At the same time, the mother does not do anything special to manufacture the breast milk when the child is born. The same Lord who sent the child through the mother's womb into this world also sends milk in the mother's breast, by which a child can be nourished. So the mother, through the mother, it is Krishna who is expressing his love for us. Through the father, it is Krishna who is expressing his love for us. So for me, I grew up in a family where I was very much closer to my mother. My father used to work in a different city. So when I used to live I lived in a very small town, and when I was about 1, my parents took me dutifully to get various vaccinations. So at that time polio was very common, so they gave polio vaccination, and somehow the doctor who was in charge of the polio vaccination, he had not kept the vaccine very well. So the vaccine, instead of protecting me from polio, ended up giving me polio. So my parents were devastated at that time. But then my mother, she would tell me that every single day I pray to God, please let him be cured. And she went through a lot of sacrifices. Now, she was also a working mother, but she actually tried various treatments. There was one doctor who said that you do some exercise, massage therapy, you'll get cured. So my mother took leave for almost 1 year, and she was staying with me in that small town where we would go and do a lot of exercises. And as I grew up, I could appreciate slowly, initially as a small, when we are small, we just keep demanding from a child. Child just cries and expects the world to come and attend to the child. But as we grow up, you understand we are not in every relationship. There is some expectation and there is some contribution. In childhood, it is mostly expectation. But as we grow up, there is more of a reciprocation, which you have to do. So contribution is there. So I started valuing more and more how much my parents were sacrificing. To take care of any child is difficult. Take care of a child who is handicapped physically is even more difficult. And they never made me feel in any way that I was a burden to them. So when I used to go to hospitals and I used to take some treatment, I could see that there are many other kids over there, and they, for them, just accepting the fact that they couldn't walk naturally, that itself was so difficult. So for me somehow, I'm grateful to my parents for that. That because they accepted me as I was, so I also accepted myself. So although I have even now I have used crutches for walking, but I hardly ever think about it. So it doesn't burden my mind at all, and it is not even before I was introduced to Krishna consciousness. Before that, it didn't burden me, and that I felt was a great gift that my parents, and especially my mother, gave me. So then my parents would tell me that whatever physical inability you have, God has compensated for that by giving you intellectual ability. And I was reasonably good in my studies. So in my 10th, I was among the toppers in a particular category. I was the first in the state of Maharashtra. So my parents were very happy. So for them, it was their dream come true. There was a top government officer of the city, the district. He came to our home to felicitate me, and then a photo of me with my brother and my parents. It came in the local newspapers. So they're very proud of that. So for them, especially for my mother, all the sacrifice that they had gone through, they saw that their son was now growing up and was becoming successful. So they were very happy with that. But the nature of life is that that very day, this district collector, he came to our house to felicitate me. That very evening, my mother was diagnosed with leukemia, with advanced blood cancer. And within 1 month, she passed away. He fought gallantly, but it was a very advanced form of cancer. So for me, it was devastating at that time. I had, as I was very close to my mother, and I had a younger brother. My father was working in a different city. So I had to take care of my younger brother. That was the time I became spiritual. I started looking for spirituality. And then, one of the big difficulties I had when I was eventually introduced to Krishna consciousness, some classes I heard, he said, all the love in this world is false. The only real love is the love of Krishna. So this I had a lot of difficulty in accepting. I said, no, I know that my parents loved me, my mother loved me. How can I say that that love is false? So then, when I was reading the Bhagavatam, in the 4th canto, there's the Dhruv Maharaj pastime. And in that Dhruv Maharaj pastime, I came across a very striking verse. So Dhruv Maharaj, when his mother-in-law insults him and his father neglects him, his brother, he said, Uttama is sitting on his father's lap, Uttana's lap, and he wants to also sit on the father's lap. But his mother-in-law pushes him away. And then he goes crying to his mother. So Suniti at that time, she tells him that, I can't help you. I am helpless. He says, then how can I help me? He says, my father did not allow me to sit on his lap. He says, I want to grow up and I want to sit on a throne bigger than his throne. So the mother says that, go to Lord Narayan. And there she says that whatever love I can offer you, or whatever love millions of mothers like me can offer you, Lord Narayan can offer you more love than that. So now, when I read that, it was a revelation for me. What it means is that if the love of the mother is false, then if it is 0, a million multiplied by 0 would still be 0. So it cannot be that the love of this world is false. But the love of the world is finite. There are various different kinds of loving relationships we may have. But no matter how much we care for others, the capacity, how much we can express that love and how much we can do for others, that is always finite. So we have 2 kinds of relationships in the world. We can say we have horizontal relationship with others and we have a vertical relationship with Krishna. So here, what is Suniti doing when she is telling to Dhruva that I love you and I will give my life for you. But in this situation, I can't do anything for you. But whatever I can't do, that and much more, Lord Narayan can do for you. So therefore, what she is doing, she is using the horizontal relationship to inspire him in his vertical relationship. You take shelter of Lord Narayan. So the ideal situation is where our horizontal relationships and our vertical relationships they work symbiotically. Symbiotically means our horizontal relationship strengthens our vertical relationship. And our vertical relationship also stabilizes our horizontal relationship. So that's the mood in the Bhagavatam when it says that one should not become a mother or father unless one can deliver one's child. What that means is that the horizontal relationship of mother and father and child will be naturally formed. But what will give speciality to that relationship, what will make that relationship human and spiritual is when that relationship is used as an impetus to form the vertical relationship. So, small children come to the temple, the parents come and bow to the Lord. Children look around, my parent is going down, let me also bow down. So they get those devotional impressions by that. So if our horizontal relationships can strengthen our vertical relationship, then that is the way in which the horizontal relationship can lead to their perfection. So the love that we get from the mother, the love that the mother offers to the child, it is real. And for a child, it is essential, especially for newborn children. Not just for a child. When we grow up, the mother always has a special place in our hearts. So that love, if we consider that if that love is so full, so essential, so valuable, but if that is like a drop, that is when saying it is like a drop, it is not meant to minimize it. Rather, if that drop, that love is like a drop, it appears so much to us, then there is an ocean of love, how much more would that be? And Krishna is Prema Sagar. He is the ocean of that love. So, whatever love we get from anyone, it is ultimately a drop of Krishna's love that we are experiencing through them. And we are grateful that we got that drop of love from them. Of course, we don't want to, again, not minimize by saying it is a drop, but it is a drop only when we compare it with the ocean. So we are grateful to those who are channels of Krishna's love for us. And as much as possible, we try to reciprocate with them also. And we try to express our gratitude in the appropriate way to the channels of love also. At the same time, we understand that we will have many relationships in this world. And all relationships are ultimately meant to point us towards our spiritual relationship. So pointing towards our spiritual relationship means that we are meant to help ourselves go towards Krishna and help others move towards Krishna. So, to the extent we can do that, to that extent our relationships fulfill their ultimate purpose. As Prabhupada said, the parents' love for their children is natural and necessary, but it is not intrinsically spiritual. It becomes spiritual when Krishna is brought into the center. And the parents can make the children into devotees, parents can give the children impressions by which the children become devotees, then they are spiritualizing their relationship. And sometimes the children may give their spirituality to the parents. And that may also spiritualize the relationship. So in my early days of Krishna consciousness, when I was very enthusiastic. So I asked one senior Vaishnava, how do I make my parents into devotees? So he told me, by letting anyone except you preach to your parents. He said that actually your parents have a particular relationship with you. They will not be able to see you as a teacher. But so I just did that. I connected my father with other devotees, and it's amazing how when I had joined the temple, my father came to the temple and met the temple commander. He took out at that time the 100 rupee notes. He threw it at him. How much money do you want? Take it and give my son back to me. So he was furious. But then eventually, as he started seeing that, I was also, parents' concern is primarily that which I will waste my life. But he started saw that I was writing, I was traveling, I was speaking. He started appreciating more and more. Then after many years, I wrote a small book, not yet published. It's a memoir about my life and how why I chose to become a monk. So when I gave that to my father and he read it, and his whole attitude changed after that. And now he has written the foreword for that book. So he has become very, very appreciative, very supportive, and So basically, we all, every single relationship that we have, we accept the value of that relationship. Not that we minimize that relationship just because it is material. We accept that it is valuable and we try to spiritualize it. I'll conclude with one story of how a relationship can be spiritualized. So I joined the Pune temple, Pune ISKCON temple. And there were two brothers who both joined and became brahmacharis. So for first one brother became a brahmachari, then after the second brother became a brahmachari. For their parents it was devastating. Both of them were well educated, both of them had bright careers. And her mother was especially very disturbed. So, but eventually they started preaching, their parents accepted, parents started also coming to the temple. So at that time, so eventually, as they're practicing and preaching, somehow their mother was diagnosed with cancer. The doctor told her, you have only a few months to live. And her cancer was very painful. But when that was so painful, at that time, she was so broken down by it. One day she told the doctor, just give me some medicine, I want to die, I can't bear this pain. So at that time, her sons were there with her, and her sons told her, you are a soul, you are in this body, and this body. At that time, they spoke a little bit philosophy too. And then she, before she departed from the world, she told her thoughts to her husband. And her husband told her, I wrote an article about it. So she, when her sons told her, actually you are a soul, and you have opportunity for eternal life. Whatever pain you are experiencing in this life, if you can take shelter of Krishna, that will give you the strength to tolerate the pain. You try to destroy your body, that will itself involve some further karma. Better not to do that. So she said that when I heard the children, with their mouths with which I had fed them my breast milk, they were speaking such wisdom. So I realized these are these really my children? She was born in a pious culture. So she knew about Bhagavatam, she knew about Ramayana, Mahabharata. Then she said, are these really my son? There's someone special. And then she said, I remembered how Kardam Muni, how Kapila Dev instructed his mother. So then she was so inspired that my children can instruct me spiritually like this. I should be telling them a spiritual thing, but they are telling me. So she became very inspired and she resolved to start practicing bhakti very seriously. And she said that I would like to come and stay in the temple. Now at that time we had a very small temple. She said, I just want to take shelter of Krishna and I want to stay in the temple. I want to take darshan and I want to take Charanamrit. So then the temple management arranged that she would come and stay in the temple. And these two devotees, they were told that whatever services you have, you focus on taking care of your mother. And they would go with her to the hospital, they would go take care of her in whatever way was required. So eventually she became a very serious devotee and she started practicing. She even got initiation. And actually before she got initiation, what happened was, she at one time suddenly became very serious. And she fell unconscious. And at that time, she was rushed to the hospital. And she was rushed to the hospital. At that time, this is what she told us later. And I wrote that in an article which is there on my website, how my cancer became a blessing. So she says that she had a near-death experience. And she saw herself from outside her body. She saw that her body is lying on the ground, on the operation theatre, on the bed, hospital bed. She saw all the doctors running around. She says, that time I realized, I was convinced, I am not the body. I am something different. I am something higher. And then, as she was there observing the doctors were rushing around doing various things, she felt herself propelled down into the body. She said, when I was free from that body, I felt as if there is no pain. She said, I am free. But then it was almost as if I was pulled back into the body. And then I was wondering, why was I pulled back into the body? But then soon after that, she got initiation. Which is when I got a spiritual name, I got a spiritual life. She realized I was given a fresh lease of life so that I could go forward in my spirituality. And normally when devotees get initiated, they are expected to fill a form. So there was one form, standard form. That's what service would she like to do? So she wrote, I would like to preach. The devotees were thinking, how can she preach? She's on the bed, she can't even walk around. But eventually, what happened was, she was staying in the temple, and her consciousness was so sublime that her relatives would come to meet her, and they would, normally if somebody is on the verge of death, her cancer was terminal. So people, they don't know what to talk. It's almost like you have affection for the person, but you don't know what to do. So it's a little difficult for people to come. But whenever they would come to meet her, now she would appear so unburdened. And she would tell them, oh, I'm chanting, so this is giving so much relief, all of you also please start chanting. And she was a little older, so she had that age on her side also. So her relatives were all amazed. Even in such a situation, she's so spiritually conscious. And she started chanting. The cancer doctor was treating her. He said that in such a situation, people will be screaming in pain. She also had pain, but she was so much more composed. He said, what do you do? How are you so composed? So then she told the doctor also about bhakti and about chanting the holy names. And she made so many people attracted towards Krishna by her own composure during that time. And then finally, when her last moments came, she at that time a youth retreat was going on in the temple. Almost 300 youth were there. And then at that time, early morning around 4 o'clock, with both her sons next to her chanting Hare Krishna, doing japa at the Mangala Arati time, Brahma Muhurta time, she departed from the world. And she departed with a very prayerful consciousness. So at that time when she departed from the world, the previous night she told her husband, she says, actually, when my sons left me to go to Krishna, so I felt betrayed. I feel as if they had left me and abandoned me. He says that actually, but now I realize that my sons, he had 3 sons, so one son was not a devotee, who was having his own family and other things. He said that actually these 2 sons who went to God, actually I thought they had abandoned me, but they did more for me than what any son could have done. No, and they took care of me practically throughout, going to the hospital with me, taking care of all the needs, doing all the tests, getting the medicines. They took care of me materially also better than what a son could have taken care of. But more importantly, they took care of me spiritually. He said that when they became brahmacharis, it was the best thing that they did in their life. And although at that time I didn't understand, I saw that as they're rejecting my love, they're rejecting my dreams for them. But actually, they were connecting with Krishna and they connected me with Krishna. So she was profoundly grateful to her sons. And of course, her sons were grateful for the opportunity to take care of her during the last days of her life. So because she departed when this youth retreat was going on, so all the youth who used to just come to the temple, sometimes not come to the temple, not so serious, when they heard about her consciousness, about her reciprocation with the children, sons reciprocation with the parents, they all became inspired. So Krishna arranged for her desire that I want to preach. That is fulfilled not just by the way she lived before her death, but also by the time when she departed from the world. And ultimately, whatever love we have in this world, if we can reciprocate that love in a way that connects us with the eternal source of all love, that is the purpose and perfection of all relationships. So a devotee, when it is said that devotees are understood Krishna, they have no obligation to the parents. That doesn't mean that a devotee doesn't care. It means that the devotee understands that the source of all love is Krishna. And if we have got love from certain channels, our mother, our father, our friends, our brothers, then we try to reciprocate with them also. They have given, whatever anyone has done for us, we try to reciprocate. And the best way we can reciprocate is by sharing Krishna, bringing Krishna into that relationship. When we bring Krishna into that relationship, then that is what ultimately spiritualizes the relationship. So for us, as devotees, we recognize the sanctity of all relationships, including the mother-child relationship. And from the sanctity to the spirituality. of that relationship. That is the journey which we all would like to go. And on days like Mother's Day, we can be grateful for whatever our mother has done for us. And we can try to see, if we are mothers, how we can take that relationship to the spiritual level. If we are children, we can contemplate how we can spiritualize that relationship with our parents. So we can do some things for others while they are with us. But if we connect them with Krishna, then Krishna can be there for all time with them. And therefore, the best thing that we can do for anyone is not just what we do physically for them, not just what we do financially for them, not just what we do for them at the material level, but the best thing that we can do for anyone is that we connect them with Krishna. And the best way we can connect them with Krishna is first by ourselves becoming properly connected with Krishna. Properly connected means that we connect with Krishna in a way that makes us better human beings. Now if a mother feels that my son, my daughter has become a better son or a better daughter by becoming a devotee, then they want to know what made you better. And that will inspire them to become devotees. If the children feel, oh, that my mother is a better mother because she's a devotee. My mother cares for me in so many ways. My mother does so much for me. And then that will inspire the children also to become devotees. So the more we ourselves connect with Krishna and we broaden our understanding of how we can benefit others, by benefiting them not just materially but also spiritually, then all our relationships can become not just sanctified but also spiritualized. So I'll summarize. I spoke today about Mother's Day, the conceptualization, the commercialization, and the spiritualization. I started by speaking about how initially in the traditional culture I felt, what is this Mother's Day? Why do we need something special? But when I came to the West, I observed that family bonds are not so strong. There's a disintegration of the family. And people are more and more self-centered. So there is an aversion to commitment. And this can be quite disorienting for people's growth. So this is Rajasic and Tamasic when we are absorbed in our own lives. So if there are occasions when we affirm the importance of others and we express our affection for them, that can be sattvic in the mode of goodness. And the purpose, the soul is meant to ultimately become selfless in love for Krishna. But the soul by default tends, if there is no relationship, it will become very self-centered. So every relationship pushes us to come out of ourselves. And parents make children and children make parents. So both with the relationship helps us to grow out of ourselves. In the human form especially, all species, the parents have to take care of the children, but nature is running in such a way that human species, the dependence on the parents is much more. And that is so that an affectionate bond is formed, and then that affectionate bond can be spiritualized. So everything that is good can become bad because of the materialism of the world. So just as Diwali or Christmas can be commercialized, even Mother's Day can be commercialized. Wherein we focus only on the, say, giving cards or getting gifts or feasting or blowing firecrackers, and we forget the essence. So the essence is not just to acknowledge the value of the relationship and the contribution that others have done to the relationship, say the mother has done for us in the relationship, but it is also to spiritualize it. So by spiritualization I describe how there is, in Indian culture there is the idea that that piety is spirituality. That mother and father are God. But if mother and father themselves are God, then if the mother and father desire different things, which gods will the child follow? So the mother and father are the first and foremost representatives of God in the child's world. And both of them are meant to take the child towards God. So whatever love anyone offers to us, it is Krishna offering their love through them. So the love in this world is real in the sense that people have real affection for each other, at least in some relationships. But at the same time, it's temporary. So Dhruva Maharaj says that, Dhruva Maharaj past time, the mother says that whatever love I can offer, Narayan can offer you millions of times more love. So the mother's love is so sweet and so uplifting for us, then we can just envision how much more will Krishna's love be. So our horizontal relationships with others in the world, including our mother, and our vertical relationship with Krishna, these are both meant to be symbiotic. So we, by practicing Krishna Bhakti, can become better children or better mothers, and but in our relationship as children or parents, we can try to also spiritualize that relationship. So I talked about how these devotees who became brahmacharis ultimately took care of their mother both materially and spiritually. And whatever relationships we have, we acknowledge their value, we acknowledge their sanctity, and then we also bring spirituality in those relationships. And that is the purpose and perfection of all relationships. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any comments, Maharaj? Yeah, no. Do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, yeah, please.
Some people in ISKCON look at Krishna as a mother, Krishna as their child. I don't understand that because it's not a natural relationship. Can you explain that to me?
Okay. So, some devotees consider Krishna to be like their child. So, how is that natural?
Well, it's not a natural
It-
relationship.
It's not a natural relationship. So, how do we understand this? Krishna is the source of everyone. In that sense, he is the supreme parent. Pitahamasya jagato mata dhata pitamaha. The Bhagavad also says that I am the father of all of existence, all living beings. So that this, in the sense that he is the source of everyone, that he is the supreme parent is acknowledged. That is, it is universally accepted. At the same time, what the Bhakti tradition reveals is what does God do at home. God also, most of the religions in the world, they talk about God as he relates with us in the world. The God does this, God does that. So there is the famous prayer in Christianity, O Father, thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, give us our daily bread. The Prabhupada appreciated that at least we are connecting with God, we are realizing that God is the source of our bread. That God is the ultimate provider of whatever we have. At the same time, he said that this prayer focus shows more our love for bread, not our love for God. If we get bread from somewhere else, we feel there's no need to go to God. So the point I'm making is that most religious traditions talk about God in his relationship with us and what he will provide for us. The Bhakti tradition acknowledges this role of God. There is that aspect of God called as Paramatma, the supreme soul who maintains all of existence. At the same time, the Bhakti tradition also talks about God in his self-existence. Now, what does he? So God, we could say God in office is doing his job of taking care of all living beings. But God also has his personal life. So what does he do at home? So that God in home, God at home is Krishna. And it is described that if we look in this world, what is it that we all look forward to the most? It is relationships and the reciprocation of love in the relationships. So God also has relationships in various flavors. So at one level, he is the provider, he is the judge, he is the administrator. But that over a period of time can become a very vapid relationship. One of my friends is a judge in a court. He said that, I do my job, but if that is all I had to do for the rest of my life, it would be quite a burden. And if I had to do it for the rest of eternity, the job of God would be very boring. So, God has his own personal life. And in that personal life, he exchanges love with different people in different relationships. So in fact, the relationships in the world we hear. Now, where do those relationships come from? The Bhagavad Gita in the 15th chapter gives the metaphor of an upside down banyan tree. And this world is like an upside down banyan tree. Urdhvam moolamadaha shakam ashwatham pragurave. So what that means is, now where do we see upside down banyan tree? There's a river, a reflection. So the reflection will be, tree will be upside down. That means there is a real tree on the bank which is naturally up. So what this metaphor is used is to indicate that this world is a reflection of the spiritual world. So whatever relationships are present in this world, they are present in their originality and purity in the spiritual world. So God enjoys all the various relationships that we enjoy in this world. In fact, we seek to enjoy them because God originally enjoys them. So here we have relationships with parents, we have relationship with friends, we have relationship with brothers, we have relationship with, we may have some admirers, we may have some servants, we may have lovers. Now all these relationships that are there in this world, they are there in their purity in the spiritual world. So those devotees like Yashoda Mai and Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, they are the parents of Krishna. Now how can anybody be a parent of God? Actually God is the source of everyone. But it is described that there is a divine illusion. There is a material illusion in this world. There is in the Vedic tradition there is a concept of Maya. Maya is that which is not. It is illusion. So Maya normally causes disconnection from God. Because of the illusions of this world, we start thinking, oh, I am this person and I want to form a relationship with that person, and we get deluded. But there is, so when we want to advance spiritually, we want to go beyond Maya. But in the spiritual world, there is also another kind of Maya. That is called Yoga Maya. So Yoga means connection. Nowadays we think of yoga as bodily exercises. But those bodily exercises are meant ultimately to connect our consciousness with God. To connect the finite consciousness with the infinite consciousness. So Yoga Maya refers to the illusion that increases the connection with God. Yoga is connection. Maya is illusion. So normally illusion disconnects us from God. But there can be an illusion that increases our connection with God. How is that possible? Say if there is the Prime Minister of a country or the President of a country. Now in their office everybody will be respecting them, treating them very deferentially. But if they go back to their home, they have a mother or a father, they will still treat them like their children. And they have children, they have grandchildren. Their relationship will be, for them, they know that there is a president or the prime minister. But for them the defining relationship is, who is my father, is my grandfather, is my son. So for them that is the primary flavor of the relationship. So similarly Krishna, in order to have uninhibited reciprocations of love, he has something called Yoga Maya in the spiritual world. It is an illusion which increases the connection with God. That means Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai, they are also great souls, and at a philosophical level they know Krishna is God. But because of Yoga Maya, so that the relationship of affection can be intensified, that awareness of Krishna's godhood goes into the background. And they see Krishna just as their child. And it is not just Krishna it is not just they see Krishna as their child. Krishna also thinks, I am their child. And in that way, what the Bhakti tradition says is that God does not delight in the display of his godhood. And I am supreme, all of you bow down to me. God delights in the reciprocation of love. And in the spiritual world, God does not reign as supreme. Rather, it is love that reigns as supreme. And for love to be uninhibited, even God's godhood gets covered. Not covered in the sense that it's an illusion, but it is put in the background. So God forgets his godhood and the devotees forget his godhood, so that love can move forward uninhibited. So if the devotees always remember he's God, he's God, he's God, oh then how can they have various flavors of affection? I said if I know he's God, how can I consider him to be my child? But if God cannot experience the love of being a child of someone, then God would be deficient. we can experience the love of parents, but God can't experience that love. That means God would be lesser than us. How is that possible? So God, the conception of God in the Bhakti tradition is rich, it's inclusive. So God can actually experience all the relationships that we experience. So in the world when we are living, it is we could say it's not natural for us to think of God as our child. So when we are serving and practicing bhakti, we do think of God as our father or the master, and we serve him in a mood of veneration. But as we become purified, when we enter the kingdom of God, we all have a particular flavor in which we serve. And parental flavor is one very, very intimate form of relationship in which both the devotee and the Lord exchange love with each other. Okay?
Shukriya, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Shall we stop? Very good. Any other questions or comments?
It's fine.
So yes. Thank you very much. Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.